So what's up guys, this is going to be a tutorial on how I do my Blender work. So basically this is going to be like a main tutorial on like how I get my thumbnails done through Blender. A little bit of an in-depth tutorial on some Photoshop work that I do, and I'm going to be showing you guys how what my process is on doing thumbnails through Blender and Photoshop, to give you guys a little more of an insight on like anything you might need help with for thumbnails. Maybe your stuff isn't looking as good, or maybe you need just more help with stuff and you're just not familiar with some things. Hopefully I can help you guys out with that today. If you guys have never used it before, I'm going to bring you guys to a link. And also, if you guys want to see more videos like this in the future, it'd be much appreciated if you guys could drop a like on the video. And let's just go ahead and get into it. So right here, guys, this is actually a download link to the actual Blender. If you guys don't actually have Blender at all and you want to actually download, this is the link to it. I'm going to have it in the description down below. It's just blender.org/download. A lot of people usually just click download Blender, but if you guys can tell, this is for 2.79. Now, personally, I like 2.8. 2.8 is exactly what this is right now. So if you guys want to get a 2.8, just go down here and click on Try Blender 2.8 Beta, and that's going to give you a download link to be able to use to actually get the software itself. Now with the software, you're going to be wondering, you know, like, oh, how do I get the models? How do I get these characters and stuff like that? Well, there's going to be another tutorial I'm not going to be showing you today on how to actually get the model into Blender, because I found that there's a lot of different ways people do it, and a lot of people can criticize it kind of. So I'm going to have a link to this video Hefix made actually on how to port. It's way better than anyone else's tutorial on how to port, and I highly recommend you going to watch it if you're learning how to actually get models into Blender. So I'm going to have that in a link down below, so we can go ahead, and if you've already watched the video, then you already have some models, and we can go ahead and continue with this. So basically this is my model, right? This is a model of a brawler skin in Fortnite Battle Royale. A lot of people don't know, you know, how to move their models and stuff like that. If you don't know how to move the model, it's pretty self-explanatory, pretty self-forward, I guess you could say. The best way, or pretty much the only way that I know to move models and stuff like that, is a lot of people don't know, is using the armature. If you don't know what the armature is, it's the .ao on the right side here. It'll be always labeled as the .ao, which are basically the bones to the mesh. The mesh itself is just the actual character. It's just like you know, the actual model, you know, the skin, the shirt, the hat, the tags, the gloves, the arms, hands, etc. But it's not the actual bones, it's just the mesh itself. So pretty much you're never going to be able to actually move it with just that. You're always going to want to move the model with the actual bones. If your bones don't show up, like maybe they're like this, or maybe they just don't let you click on it, always make sure to check the right side. A lot of people mistaken that for. Make sure the right side always has these three things on. Basically what these are, and also this, the little camera thing, because sometimes it doesn't, if this is off, or if the mesh itself is off with the camera, then it will not render with the mesh. So you always want to make sure all of these are on, because then you'll be able to actually use them. So pretty much these things on the left side, if you guys are not familiar at all, these are the moving tools, like basically what you can use to move. You got the select box, which helps select anything and everything you want in your scene. You got this tool, which is a cursor tool. This basically is used to target things. So like if I wanted to use this cursor tool and I wanted to put a plane right here on her head, I can do that, and now I can just add a plane, and then this plane will be on her head just like that. It'll spawn in there. It's useful, but it's not necessarily like the most necessary thing. You can always just, if it's in one spot, you can always just move it and edit it to your liking. Obviously a lot of people do that anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. You got this is like an all-in-one mode, like tool. You got the rotate, you got the sizing, you got the positioning. So it's really, that's kind of useful, but I find it's a little crowded. So what I like to use, I use, you know, the move tool, the rotate, and the scale, but in their own separate ways. So if I want to move something, I'll just actually click on the buttons, which will be right underneath it. Another thing, a lot of people don't know, moving, you can use two ways to like move the camera. You can either use the top right with this little axis tool, or you can click on the middle mouse button, hold it down, and then move around, and that'll also let you do that. Or if you click the middle mouse button on your mouse and shift at the same time, you can move it side to side, or with control in the middle mouse you can, you know, zoom in and out. So that's another thing you can use that a lot of people don't know about. It's really helpful, and I don't know what I would do without it. Nodes is something that you guys probably won't see if you just start. If you anything, when you just start, you're just gonna have this little timeline thing come up, and you won't know how to get to like adding textures or something. So let's say like your character didn't have let's say your characters didn't have any thing on it, right? Like it was just black, or maybe if it's just white and you can't, you don't know where to add anything. One good way is definitely using the node editor. If you don't know how to get to it, it's going to be like this when you first start up Blender. You just have to go to the left side, change the clock to the shader editor, and that's how you get to the nodes. And there's just a lot of stuff in here. It's really helpful for anything you want to add with textures or lights or emission or anything like that. It's really helpful, and I recommend trying it out. But I'm not going to be showing too in depth on that today because obviously I'm not super experienced. I know the main basics with FN shader and stuff like that. Also, if you guys don't have an FN shader, and you guys are probably using a principle instead, which will look like this. If you have been using this and you want to move over to FN shader, which is basically a shortcut of the principle, I recommend using FN shader. It's just a faster way. It's not like a more like newbie way, if you want to say it. It's mainly just a faster way to if you're just texturing the skins for Fortnite. I highly recommend using this instead. I'm going to have a link to it down in the description. It's made by Ed, or Lenoco22. I'm going to have his Twitter as well. He's absolutely insane at the software, and I highly recommend, if you guys ever want to see something to inspire you to continue or to make new stuff or creative stuff, to definitely go check him out. He's got a lot of helpful tips on there as well, and I could not say enough to go check out some of the stuff that he does. So just like that, you have a FN shader. A lot of people don't actually have this and don't know where it's at, so I'm just going to leave a Google Drive link down below to download this. Also, another thing that people don't actually have is a denoiser. If you're just starting out, then you definitely won't have this. It's a plugin. Denoiser helps when you're rendering something in cycles. So if I were to render this character in cycles, and you see there's a lot of pixels that are going on the screen, you can just see that it's super like pixelating and stuff like that. One of the main reasons is denoiser. Denoiser helps when you rendered it out and everything like that to like get away from all the noise. So if you don't have denoiser, it's a plugin, and I'm going to leave a download link in the description, and I'm going to show you guys how to install it right now. So mainly all you have to do is when you go to edit, the top left, go to preferences, and you're going to come up with this screen. Make sure that you're on add-ons. It's a little section on the left side. You can click on it, and you want to type in denoise. You guys might not have this because you don't have it installed, obviously. So the real easiest way to install it is just install, and then you just want to find the location, and then when you find it, it'll be in it. Leave it as a .zip because that's what you're going to download it as, and just leave it as a .zip and click install add-on from file. Then you're going to have it on your Blender, but you have to make sure to check mark it. So what you're going to do is you're going to search in the tab D and then a dash, and you're going to come up with render denoise all accelerated denoiser, and you're going to make sure to just click on the check mark, click save preferences, and then you should have denoise right here. So then you just gotta go ahead and start posing. Posing is super easy in my opinion, depending on what it is that you're doing. If you want to just do a basic thumbnail and you want to do like a basic pose, maybe a character holding a gun, then you can obviously work with it. One of the main things I recommend doing is messing with the facials. Facials is so important that not a lot of people do. If you want to make someone angry, I recommend moving up the eyelids, and then maybe rotating the left brow outer and the left brow mid, so that you can kind of make them look angrier. It's just stuff like that. Like, a lot of people don't work on their facials a lot, which I highly recommend doing actually. So actually right now I'm gonna go ahead and pose this, but if you guys don't know how to actually get to the posing itself, just make sure to click on the AO is always the bones, and then go from object mode to pose mode, and then you should be able to actually move around the bones. You should be able to drag it if you want, rotate a leg, whatever you're wanting to do, and then you'll be able to actually pose it. Now if you were to get out of pose mode, again it's just backwards, just go over to here to pose mode and just click on object mode, and you're back in regular object mode. And yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and post this thumbnail now because this is actually like client work that I'm doing. I just thought it'd be better if I worked like on a hands-on thing. I think it would be a lot better, so that's what I'm gonna do now, and I'll be back with you guys after I'm done. Okay, so this part of the tutorial, guys, I'm going to be showing you something else. So I just finished my posing. This is the final kind of like product, I guess you could say, for this thumbnail. Again, it's not really not the best thumbnail ever, but it is just like kind of how I do it. But anyway, so pretty much at this part is when you actually start to light stuff. Now, if you guys don't know, if you want to be able to add an HDRI, now I know a lot of people kind of like, oh, you know, they kind of meme it like, oh, you know, you use this HDRIs and stuff like that. HDRIs genuinely are helpful. Like, I don't know what people think. There's a difference between using HDRIs and then using HDRIs with lighting. HDRIs can help display a lot of shadows, which can be really helpful for your piece. I'm going to be using an HDRI called Noon or Day Soon, I think it is. I don't know how to say it. It's obviously this is named differently, but if you want to get to the HDRI section to where you do it, you're going to want to drag up. So this should be how it looks. At the bottom, there should be a thing where you can drag up, and this should be the node editor. You want to go over to here to object, and you want to change it to world. Now, this is going to be where you add it. So if you want to add a environment texture, which is an HDRI, you want to do Shift A. Don't do add, Shift A. Search and look up environment texture. And just like this, you're going to find this thing. And what you're going to do is you're going to drag this dot to this dot. Now, when you go into the cycles, it's going to look like this, and it's going to look really weird. So what you want to do is you want to find your environment texture you want to add. Now, personally, I want to add in Noon. So Noon is my go-to HDRI whenever I want to maybe run a fast thumbnail, if I want to add something for a scene, because obviously you don't want to light up a whole scene. Sometimes it's helpful just to add in a certain thing. So I'm going to leave it down in the description if you guys want to check it out. I know a lot of people don't have it, so it's really helpful to have. Now, obviously, as you can see right now, it looks kind of weird. There's a whole background and everything. You're wondering, you know, like, oh, how do I turn this off? If you go to this little thing right here on the right called Render, it's a little camera section, and you click on this thing called Film, you want to check Transparent, and then there you go. Now you have a transparent background. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to light it up. Obviously my models aren't sized down, and if your models are like this where you want to add a light, I recommend using cursor to direct where your light's going to be. So if I want to have it here, I can add the light in. If your light is tiny like this and it's not seeing, and you try to size it up and it's still not showing, it's because you have to size down your models for the light to actually display. If you resize a area light, then it's going to get messed up kind of. But for this sake, I'm actually going to be doing a thing called emission plane kind of thing. Now, I learned this from Evade Cosmic. He's a really helpful guy. I'm going to leave his stuff in the description down below as well. What you do is you're going to add in a plane, right? So you're going to have this plane, and you're going to resize it to make it into as big as possible, or as big as you want it to be. Now, what I use these types of lights for are called rim lights. Rim lights are lights that display kind of like sharp corners of light to help with your scene. But for this, I'm going to actually add on a to make it into a light itself instead of just a plane, which will be basically like substituting for actual area lights. So you want to just go ahead and make a new node. So it'll say this thing right here, check mark this new nodes on this plane, delete the principal, and then you want to Shift A, search, and look up emission. This is basically what powers the light. So you're going to have this here instead. And then now what you want to do, I recommend doing this first. You can drag this back down, position your light how you want it to be. So I'm actually going to lighten it up a little more. So I'm going to open this up just a bit, lighten this up so I get some light going through here. And I'm going to go ahead and position this to be exactly how I want it. So I'm going to have this. I'm going to size this, and then maybe make it smaller. The thinner you make it, the sharper the lights are going to be. And then once you have it positioned the way you want, you're going to go over here to this little cross circle thing, and you want to click on check off camera, just like that. And now it's going to substitute for a camera light without sizing down the models. This is really good sometimes if it's like a fast one, you got to get this done. But other times I really do recommend using actual area lights. It doesn't really matter which one you use, but I personally think area lights are better. But this is just a really helpful substitute, I guess you could say, for it. So I'm going to go ahead and start positioning these lights how I want them, and we'll get right back to you guys. So another thing I gotta say real quick, if you guys' lights are kind of like showing up in different spots, you're like, oh, why is this brighter than this one? Why is this brighter than that one? When you're making these, if you're gonna be doing it this way, you have to make sure to always click this little button right here in the material section. This is going to be basically making it into separate lights, so I recommend doing it for every single one of them so that you'll be able to actually I guess you could say customize your lighting. It's just so much. I forgot to mention that. It's really helpful, and I just realized that I messed up on that. But yeah, I recommend doing that. Okay guys, so once you finish your render, the first thing that I want to teach you guys, one of the most important things is when you finish it, if you guys happen to use the Noon HDRI, then you want to stick around for this part. It's a little important. Obviously the first thing you want to do is turn up the samples. If you don't know how to turn up the samples, you go to this little camera section right here, and it'll be right here under sampling. It might be closed off, it might not. I'm not sure how your Blender is set up, but if it isn't, then go to the sampling and then just turn this up to about, I'd say, 900 to 1000. Again, you can render this sampling at anything you want. It's all different for everybody, but I like to set it at about 1200. That's personally my preference. But obviously you could have something different. Some people think that's way too high, but I think it's just perfect, but that's just me. Then you want to go down three sections and go to this thing where it's like a bunch of like photos. It's called view layer, and you want to, this is how it's going to look. You want to open this up and you want to turn on this and this. This is the HDR training, and you want to turn on the all denoiser for denoise. Some people just turn on denoising. I don't know which one you do, but this is the way I do it. And then after that, the last thing, if you guys use the Noon HDRI, I recommend going back over to the render and then opening up this thing called light paths. And then you want to go down to clamping and change the 0 to 6 and change 10 to 6 so that they're both 6 and 6, and that helps get rid of the noise that's on Noon HDRIs. So after that, you can go ahead and render. I'm going to do a little bit of final touching up, and then I'm going to render, and we'll head over to Photoshop. Alright guys, so once you've actually dragged in your Photoshop, Blender, render, once it's finished rendering, you dragged into Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and show you exactly what I do. First of all, before I do anything, I go ahead and find the actual background that suits this render. So I'm going to go ahead and go into Photoshop Replay. I personally find it the best way. Now, if you guys don't want to actually go into Replay, you don't happen to go in there very often, or maybe you can't, or something's wrong with that, I do actually own a screenshot pack that you guys are able to purchase if you really want to. It's got screenshots of every single location on the map in night, day, and sunset, just like so. There's Lucky Landing, obviously. You got Lazy Lagoon, Lucky Landing. You got Old Tilted. Sadly, I don't have any of the new ones. I probably should update that. Sunny Steps, obviously. All of these maps and locations, along with 9 different renders that you can use for headers and stuff like that. But I'm going to go ahead and go into replay mode now. So just like that, I think that works out pretty well with the background. I'm not going to lie. I'm really starting to like this. So I'm going to make it a bit bigger and kind of adjust it to my liking, just like that. And then what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to add in some custom CCs that I use for pretty much every single one of my renders. Obviously this is something that you guys got to find out for your own, but these are just my own presets that I add on every time. And then I'm going to start working with just stroking the sides and stuff like that, the backgrounds, to help create more of rim lights that weren't able to be created in Blender. Okay, so there we go. I like it just like that. I'm going to go ahead and also add some blur to this. Gaussian blur is also really helpful. I like to keep Gaussian blur like 1.5, and then maybe mess with the box blur a bit. Again, it can always be different. Just depends on your render. I'm going to set that to about 3. I'm going to also go into the smart filters and clean up this part so it looks more presentable. Just like so. I'm going to add a slight bit of radial blur as well. This part is kind of like more of like a customization part. Most of the rest of this is kind of customizable to your liking, more of. So the rest of this is pretty much just my own way of doing Photoshop work. Obviously, every single time it's going to be different depending on what your piece is and what you're actually doing. I don't really have too much to show that's going to be helping you guys a lot. If you guys, this is pretty much going to be like more of like a speed art for the rest of this video. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on some other stuff at the very end, but right now I'm just going to go ahead and show a quick speed art on like some of the extra stuff that I add on to my pieces before I actually get into the final effects. So another thing I like to use is I like to use camera raw filter. If you guys don't know what this is like a setting that a lot of people like to use. I just recently started like a month or two ago, and I really am glad I did, because this is literally insane. You can go to filter, then camera raw, and then you get all of these, and it's really helpful. Try out all kinds of different ways to help improve your design with lighting and colors and everything like that. So I really recommend trying it out and using it for a lot of your thumbnails after you're finished with a lot of the lighting and effects that you want to add on in the first part. So this is going to be the end of the video. This is the final product of what I came up with. If you guys did enjoy today's video, if you want to see more videos like this in the future, tutorials and more speed arts in the future, it'd be much appreciated if you guys could leave a like on the video. I'm really excited to try to do this, and I'm glad that a lot of you guys are taking interest in some of the stuff that I do. Hopefully this helps you out. I don't know how well this tutorial actually came out. I'm not really the best with tutorials, as you can tell, but hopefully if you have any questions or anything, just go ahead and leave in the comments down below and try to reply to as many people as I can if you have any questions or anything like that. And that's gonna be it for the video. If you guys did enjoy today's video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. We're trying to hit 22K as soon as we can, so we much appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.